The Great Hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with quiet conversations as 12 different alien species took their seats around the massive crystal table. Ambassador Zix Thera of the Hegemony clicked her sharp mandibles together as she looked at the voting results on her screen. Her insect-like eyes gleamed with satisfaction as she prepared to make the announcement that would change everything. "The final vote has been counted," she said, her voice translated into dozens of languages through the universal communicators. "By a vote of 11-1, humanity is expelled from the Galactic Council. All human colonies and settlements must leave their current locations and move beyond the outer rim within one standard galactic cycle." The only vote against the expulsion had come from the Andromedans, but even they seemed relieved that the decision was finally made. For months, the Council had debated what to do about the humans and their stubborn refusal to share their advanced military technology. The other species had grown tired of human independence and their constant questions about Council policies. Councillor Vorthak of the Collective adjusted his flowing robes and added, "The humans have shown themselves to be uncooperative and potentially dangerous. They refuse to follow proper galactic protocols and insist on maintaining their own military forces. This expulsion is necessary for galactic peace." On Earth, 37 light-years away from the Council chambers, Admiral Jake Morrison sat in his office deep inside the Pentagon. The walls were covered with star charts and tactical displays showing human colonies scattered across the galaxy. His weathered face remained calm as he read the official expulsion notice that had just arrived through the quantum communication network. Captain Lisa Brooks stood beside his desk, her hands clenched into fists as she read over his shoulder. 30 years, she said, her voice tight with anger. 30 years of partnership, of fighting alongside them against pirates and raiders, of sharing our medical technology and helping them solve their energy problems. And they throw us out because we won't give them our weapons. Morrison stood up slowly and walked to the large window that looked out over the bustling streets of Washington. People went about their daily lives, completely unaware that their species had just been cast out from galactic civilization. "They think they're punishing us, Lisa," he said quietly. "They have no idea what they've just set in motion." The door to his office burst open and Dr. Amanda Foster rushed in carrying a tablet computer in her hands. Her usually neat hair was disheveled and her lab coat was wrinkled, showing she had been working without rest for days. "Admiral, you need to see this immediately," she said, holding up the tablet. "Our deep space monitoring stations have detected massive fleet movements throughout Council space." Morrison turned away from the window and took the tablet from her hands. The screen showed a tactical map of the galaxy with hundreds of red dots moving toward human-controlled systems. "Tell me what I'm looking at," he said. Foster pointed to different areas of the map. "The Hegemony has mobilized their second and fourth battle fleets. The Collective is moving 3 full expeditionary forces toward our outer colonies. Even the Andromedans who voted against our expulsion are quietly repositioning their ships. Intelligence suggests they're planning to divide up human space once we're gone." Brooks leaned over the table to get a better look at the display. "How long do we have before they arrive?" 6 months? Maybe less," Foster replied. "They're not even trying to hide their movements. They think we'll just pack up and leave quietly, like some defeated species crawling away with our tails between our legs." Morrison's jaw tightened as he studied the tactical display. For 3 decades, humanity had been part of the Galactic Council, contributing to their scientific advancement, helping them solve conflicts, and always playing by their rules. But the humans had also been preparing for this day, the day when their supposed allies would reveal their true intentions. "They want us gone because they fear what we might become," Morrison said, setting the tablet down on his desk. "They've seen our innovation, our adaptability, our refusal to accept limitations. They know that, given enough time, we would surpass them all." Foster nodded grimly. "The other species have been stagnant for centuries, following the same old patterns and technologies. They can't understand how we've advanced so rapidly in just a few decades of galactic contact. Morrison walked back to his desk and activated his secure communication system. The screen flickered to life, showing a conference room filled with military officers and scientists from around the world. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "you've all seen the expulsion order and the intelligence reports. It's time to implement Protocol 7. Protocol 7 had been in development for over 20 years, a contingency plan created by the brightest human minds in case this day ever came. It was based on a simple principle. If humanity was going to be cast out of galactic civilization, they would make sure the galaxy remembered why they had been feared in the first place. All colony worlds are to begin immediate evacuation procedures," Morrison continued, addressing the assembled officers. "But this is not a retreat. This is the most sophisticated military deception in human history. Every transport ship, every cargo vessel, every civilian evacuation craft is to be equipped with the special modifications we've been preparing." General Patricia Stone, commander of the Colonial Defense Forces, spoke up from the screen. "Admiral, what about the civilians? They don't know about Protocol 7. "They will be protected," Morrison replied. "But they also don't need to know the full truth yet. As far as they're concerned, this is a standard evacuation to avoid conflict with Council forces. The real work will be done by our special teams." Foster pulled up another display on her tablet. "The quantum resonance arrays are ready for deployment on all major colonies. The Omega Project ships are hidden and waiting in the Oort Cloud installations. Every piece is in place." Morrison looked around the room at his assembled staff. These were the people who had spent decades preparing for this moment, knowing that humanity's peaceful coexistence with the galactic community might not last forever. "The Council thinks they're getting rid of a problem," he said. "Instead, they're about to unleash something they never imagined possible." Brooks stepped forward. "Orders, sir." "Send the message to all human colonies and ships," Morrison said. "Operation Exodus begins immediately. And make sure every Council observer sees exactly what they expect to see: a defeated species packing up and leaving quietly." As the communication ended and his staff began implementing the complex evacuation plan, Morrison remained at his window, looking out at the city below. In 6 months, everything would change. The galaxy would learn what happened when you cornered humanity and gave them nothing left to lose. 3 months had passed since the Galactic Council's expulsion order, and across human space, the Great Exodus was underway. To any outside observer, it appeared exactly as the Council had intended, a defeated species quietly packing up their belongings and retreating to the outer edges of the galaxy. But appearances could be very deceiving. Captain Ryan Davis stood on the bridge of the cargo vessel New Frontier as it prepared to depart from the mining world of Kepler 442b. Through the view screen, he could see the massive hegemony observation, ships hovering in orbit, their sensors constantly scanning every human vessel that left the planet. The insect-like aliens were making sure the humans followed the evacuation order exactly. "Sir, the hegemony observers are asking questions about our cargo manifest," reported Lieutenant Kelly Martinez from her position at the communications station. "They want to know why we're taking so much mining equipment with us." Davis smiled, though he kept his expression neutral for the benefit of the alien observers who might be watching. "Tell them it's standard evacuation protocol," he said calmly. "Humans always take their tools and equipment when they relocate. It's part of our nature." What the hegemony observers didn't know was that the mining equipment being loaded onto the New Frontier was actually a collection of modified particle beam weapons, disguised to look like industrial laser drills. The agricultural processing units were actually portable shield generators. Even the medical supplies contained components for advanced weapon systems that could be assembled once they reached their destination. On the planet's surface, Commander Alex Turner oversaw the evacuation of the research station on Europa 7. The facility had been humanity's primary research center for quantum physics and advanced energy systems. To the collective warships maintaining their peacekeeping presence in the system, it looked like the humans were simply dismantling their laboratories and packing up their scientific equipment. "The quantum resonance array is ready, Commander," reported Dr. Nancy Webb, her hands shaking slightly from exhaustion and excitement. She had been working for 72 hours straight to complete the final modifications. "We can trigger it remotely once we're safely out of the system." Turner nodded as he watched the last of the research equipment being loaded onto transport ships. In reality, they were leaving behind something far more dangerous than any laboratory. The entire planet had been turned into a massive weapons platform with hidden energy collectors and quantum field generators buried beneath the surface. When activated, the system would turn Europa 7 into something the galaxy had never seen before. "What about the other installations?" Turner asked, quietly. Webb consulted her tablet computer. Phoenix Base on Titan 7. The research facility orbiting Proxima Centauri, the agricultural station on New Eden, they're all equipped and ready. When the Council species move in to claim our territories, they're going to discover that we left them some very unpleasant surprises. Similar scenes were playing out across dozens of human colonies. On the industrial world of New Pittsburgh, factory workers loaded manufacturing equipment onto cargo ships while collective observers watched through their scanning devices. The aliens saw exactly what their computers told them they were seeing: industrial machinery, raw materials, and civilian supplies. They had no way of knowing that human computer experts had spent years learning how to fool galactic sensor technology. The manufacturing equipment was actually a complete weapons production facility designed to be assembled quickly once it reached its new location. The raw materials included rare elements needed for advanced military systems. Even the civilian supplies contained components that could be rapidly converted into military gear. Captain Jennifer Hayes commanded the passenger transport Liberty Bell as it carried families away from the colony world of New Virginia. Her ship was filled with men, women, and children who believed they were simply relocating to avoid potential conflict with Council forces. They had no idea that many of their fellow passengers were actually Special Forces operatives in civilian clothing. "Ma'am, the Andromedan escort ships are requesting a passenger manifest," reported her first officer, Lieutenant Danny Rodriguez. "They want to verify that we're only carrying civilians." Hayes handed him a datapad containing the carefully prepared false documents. "Give them the standard manifest. Make sure they see that we're just a group of families looking for a new home." The Andromedans, despite voting against human expulsion, were still following Council protocols. Their ships scanned every human vessel, looking for military equipment or personnel. What they found were exactly the readings they expected: life signs consistent with human families, cargo holds full of personal belongings, and energy signatures matching civilian ship systems. They had no way of detecting the special forces, soldiers whose biosignatures had been altered to match those of ordinary civilians. They couldn't see through the holographic disguises that made military equipment appear to be household items. Most importantly, they couldn't detect the quantum-encrypted communication devices that allowed every human ship to maintain contact with Admiral Morrison's command center on Earth. Back on Earth, Morrison monitored the evacuation from his command center deep beneath the Pentagon. Wall-sized screens showed the positions of every human ship, every alien observer, and every piece of hidden equipment being moved into position. The operation was proceeding exactly as planned. "Amanda, status report on the Omega project," he said to Dr. Foster, who was coordinating the technical aspects of the evacuation. Foster looked up from her bank of computer screens. "Fleet Admiral Patricia Stone reports that all 12 super dreadnoughts are complete and hidden in the Oort Cloud installations. The new propulsion systems have been tested and are fully operational. We're ready for Phase 2. The Omega Project. Ships were humanity's secret weapon, built over the past decade in hidden shipyards at the very edge of the solar system. Using technology that the Council species had never seen, these vessels were capable of speeds and maneuvers that would seem impossible to galactic military experts. Their weapon systems were based on principles that human scientists had developed in secret, far beyond anything the aliens possessed. Morrison activated his secure communicator, sending an encrypted message to every human ship, colony, and hidden installation across the galaxy. All stations, this is Earth Command. Execute breakaway protocol. As of this moment, humanity is no longer bound by Galactic Council law or oversight. We are a free species, and we will defend that freedom with everything we have. The breakaway. Protocol was the final phase of the evacuation, the moment when humanity officially severed all ties with the galactic community. From now on, every human colony, every ship, every installation would operate under new rules written by humans for humans. On colony worlds across the galaxy, human administrators quietly activated hidden systems and began the real work of relocation. What appeared to be abandoned settlements were actually carefully prepared trap sites. What looked like discarded equipment was actually sophisticated monitoring and defense systems. What seemed like a defeated retreat was actually the largest military deception in galactic history. Captain Brooks entered Morrison's command center with the latest intelligence reports. Sir, Council fleets are beginning to move toward our former territories. The Hegemony 4th Fleet is approaching New Babylon. The Collective 3rd Expeditionary Force is heading for Kepler 442b. Morrison studied the tactical displays showing the approaching alien fleets. Let them come, he said quietly. They think they're moving in to claim empty territory. They're about to learn that humanity doesn't abandon anything. We just change the rules of the game. 6 months after the evacuation deadline had passed, the Galactic Council's member species began their planned occupation of former human territories. Operation Reclamation, as they called it, was designed to be a simple takeover of abandoned worlds and facilities. The alien commanders expected no resistance from the empty systems that humans had supposedly fled. Admiral Korth of the Hegemony 4th Fleet approached the former human stronghold of New Babylon with complete confidence. His battle group consisted of 60 warships, including 4 massive dreadnoughts and dozens of support vessels. According to intelligence reports, the entire system was empty, abandoned by the humans as ordered by the Council. Sensors show no human presence in the system, reported his tactical officer, clicking his mandibles in satisfaction. All orbital installations appear to be powered down and abandoned. The planets show no signs of active settlements. Korth settled back in his command chair, pleased with how smoothly the operation was proceeding. Begin landing operations on the primary world, he ordered. The Council wants these facilities brought back online within 10 standard days. We'll show them how efficiently the hegemony can occupy and control territory. The first wave of hegemony, landing craft descended toward New Babylon's surface, their sensors detecting what appeared to be empty human cities and abandoned industrial complexes. The alien soldiers prepared for a routine occupation mission, expecting to find nothing more dangerous than some leftover equipment and empty buildings. That's when New Babylon's hidden defense grid came online. The quantum mines that had been invisible to conventional sensors suddenly materialized throughout the hegemony formation. These weapons used technology that the galactic community had never encountered, based on principles that human scientists had developed in complete secrecy. In the space of 30 seconds, Admiral Korth's proud 4th Fleet was reduced to expanding clouds of superheated plasma and twisted metal debris. The tactical officer's final transmission, cut off mid-sentence, reached Hegemony Command as a burst of static followed by silence. Where 60 warships had been moments before, there was now only empty space and the slowly expanding remains of what had once been the most powerful fleet in hegemony space. Similar disasters were unfolding across former human territory. The Collective Third Expeditionary Force, commanded by Admiral Kethera, approached the mining world of Kepler 442b with equal confidence. Their intelligence indicated that the humans had stripped the planet of all valuable equipment before leaving, making it ready for immediate collective occupation. "Landing forces prepared," reported the fleet's ground commander. "We should have the mining operations restored within 2 weeks." Kethara nodded approvingly as his ships entered orbit around the planet. The humans were thorough in their evacuation, but they couldn't take the planet itself. "Once we install our own equipment, this world will be more productive than ever." The first collective shuttles landed on what appeared to be the abandoned mining complex, their sensors showing empty buildings and quiet machinery. The alien soldiers spread out across the facility, looking for useful equipment that the humans might have left behind. They found more than they bargained for. The entire planet revealed itself to be a massive weapons platform. What had appeared to be abandoned mining equipment was actually an interconnected network of particle beam cannons and missile batteries. The empty buildings were filled with automated defense systems that had been waiting patiently for targets to present themselves. The collective landing force was wiped out in minutes. Their ships in orbit lasted only slightly longer, as the planet's hidden weapons systems reached up to destroy everything in the sky above them. Admiral Kethara's final message to collective command was a single word: impossible. On the Council, homeworld of Nexus Prime, emergency sessions were being called as reports of complete fleet destruction flooded the communication channels. Council members who had been celebrating the successful expulsion of humanity now faced the reality that 13 separate fleets had been completely annihilated in a single day. "This cannot be happening," chittered Ambassador Zix Thera, her usually composed demeanor cracking under the stress. "Our intelligence confirmed that all human forces had withdrawn beyond the outer rim. The systems were empty." Counselor Vorthak of the Andromedans slammed his appendage on the crystal table, his normally calm species showing signs of panic for the first time in centuries. 13 fleets destroyed. 13! More than half our combined military strength gone in a single day. How is this possible? The answer came when long-range sensors detected massive energy signatures moving inward from the outer rim. Ships unlike anything in the galactic database were approaching Council space, their designs sleek and angular, with propulsion systems that seemed to bend space itself around them. The energy readings from these vessels exceeded anything the Council species had ever built. "Unknown ships approaching Nexus Prime," reported the Planetary Defense Coordinator, his voice shaking with fear. "They're moving at speeds that should be impossible. Our fastest ships can't match their velocity." The main screen in the Council chambers flickered to life, showing the bridge of one of the approaching human vessels. Admiral Jake Morrison appeared on the display, standing calmly on what was clearly the command center of a warship far more advanced than anything the Council possessed. "Greetings, former colleagues," Morrison said, his voice carrying clearly across the chamber. "I thought you might like to know that your invasion fleets have been dealt with. Consider this a demonstration of what 3 decades of unrestricted human innovation can accomplish when we're no longer held back by your regulations and oversight." The Council members stared at the screen in shock. Behind Morrison, they could see displays showing tactical information about the destroyed alien fleets. Every ship, every crew member, every piece of equipment had been accounted for and eliminated with surgical precision. "You murdered millions of our people," Vorthak accused, his voice filled with rage and disbelief. Morrison's expression didn't change. "Your people entered human space with hostile intent, planning to occupy our former colonies and divide up our territory among yourselves. They were invaders, and they were dealt with accordingly. If you want to call that murder, then perhaps you should have thought about that before you sent them." Ambassador Zixathera found her voice. "The systems were empty. You had evacuated them as ordered by the Council." "We evacuated our civilians," Morrison replied calmly. But we never said anything about abandoning our territory. Those worlds belong to humanity, regardless of what the Council decided in our absence. You had no right to send invasion fleets into our space. On the tactical displays behind Morrison, the Council members could see more human ships arriving in the Nexus Prime system. Dozens of vessels that defied every known principle of galactic shipbuilding, armed with weapons that had just proven capable of destroying entire fleets with ease. "What do you want?" Zix Thara asked, her mandibles clicking nervously. Morrison smiled, though there was no warmth in his expression. "What we've always wanted. The right to exist as a free species without interference from a council that considers us inferior. The difference is that now we don't need your permission or approval. You expelled us from your organization, and now you're going to learn what that actually means." The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. Outside, through the great windows that looked out over the capital city, they could see human warships taking positions in orbit around their homeworld. Ships that had appeared from nowhere, moving with impossible speed and grace, carrying weapons that had just demonstrated their ability to destroy anything the galactic community could send against them. For the first time in thousands of years, the species that controlled the Galactic Council found themselves at the mercy of another race, and that race was humanity. The species they had dismissed as primitive and dangerous, the species they had tried to exile to the outer reaches of the galaxy. "What have we done?" whispered Counselor Vorthak, staring up at the human ships that now controlled the space around their most important world. The answer was becoming terrifyingly clear. They had given humanity exactly what the humans needed most, a reason to stop holding back. The human counteroffensive began at what the military planners called 0 hour, though in the depths of space, there was no real dawn to mark the beginning of the operation. Fleet Admiral Patricia Stone commanded the spearhead attack from her flagship, the UES Retribution, as 12 super dreadnoughts materialized out of hyperspace around Nexus Prime like ghosts becoming solid. The Council's home defense fleet, under the command of Admiral Kith Ara of the Collective, scrambled to respond to the sudden appearance of the human warships. 200 vessels against 12 seemed like favorable odds to the alien commander, even after the disasters that had befallen the invasion fleets. Surely the humans couldn't have that many advanced ships. "All units, engage the human vessels," Kethara ordered from the bridge of his flagship. "Show them that the Council's military might cannot be defeated by a handful of primitive warships." That confidence lasted exactly 47 seconds. The human ships opened fire with weapons that defied everything the galactic community understood about physics and warfare. Energy beams that seemed to cut through the most advanced alien shields, like they were made of paper. Missiles that somehow passed through solid armor plating before detonating inside enemy hulls. Most disturbing of all, the human ships seemed to know exactly where each alien vessel would be before it moved there. "How are they doing this?" Kethara demanded, as his carefully planned formation was systematically torn apart. "It's as if they can predict our every tactical decision before we make it." They could. Captain Danny Rodriguez commanded the intelligence vessel Ghost Protocol from a position of complete stealth, his ship invisible to alien sensors, while his advanced computers analyzed every aspect of the enemy fleet's behavior. The artificial intelligence systems aboard his vessel had been fed decades of data about galactic military tactics and ship movements. "Admiral Stone, I'm feeding real-time tactical analysis to all ships in the battle group," Rodriguez reported, over the secure communication channel. "The enemy is using Standard Collective Battle Formation 7, modified for defensive operations. Our prediction algorithms have mapped their likely responses with 97% accuracy." Stone smiled grimly as she watched another collective heavy cruiser fall to her ship's main guns. 30 years of studying their military doctrine, while they completely ignored our technological development. Their biggest mistake was thinking we would never catch up to them. The battle for Nexus Prime lasted exactly 6 hours and 14 minutes. When it ended, the Council's vaunted home defense fleet existed only as expanding clouds of debris and the occasional escape pod drifting through space. Human Marines, led by Colonel Steve Parker, were already landing on the planet's surface, with orders to secure key installations with minimum civilian casualties. "Remember, people," Parker announced to his troops as their landing craft descended toward the capital city, "we're liberators, not conquerors. These aliens made some bad decisions, but that doesn't mean we're here to destroy their civilization. Secure the government buildings, protect the civilian population, and show them that humanity knows the difference between military targets and innocent people." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, other human task forces were conducting similar operations. Against military installations and strategic targets, the campaign was precise, surgical, and devastatingly effective. Every target had been chosen for maximum strategic impact while minimizing harm to civilian populations. Captain Jennifer Hayes commanded Task Force 7 as it approached the major hegemony shipyard complex at Kepler Station. The facility was responsible for producing nearly 30% of the hegemony's military vessels, making it a crucial target for the human offensive. "Scanning shows approximately 10,000 civilian workers on the station," reported her tactical officer. "Military personnel number around 3,000. Hayes studied the tactical display carefully. "Signal the station commander. Give him 10 minutes to evacuate all civilian personnel to the outer sections. Military personnel can surrender or fight, their choice, but those civilians get clear before we begin our assault." It was this kind of precision and restraint that was confusing the alien species throughout the galaxy. They had expected the humans to behave like any other conquering force, destroying everything in their path and enslaving the defeated populations. Instead, the humans were fighting with a level of discrimination and ethical consideration that the galactic community had never experienced in warfare. On Earth, Admiral Morrison coordinated the massive offensive from his command center, surrounded by displays showing the progress of dozens of simultaneous operations. Dr. Amanda Foster worked alongside him, monitoring alien communications networks and analyzing the psychological impact of the human campaign. "They're completely demoralized," Foster reported, listening to intercepted communications from various alien worlds. 37 species have already announced their withdrawal from Council membership. The Hegemony High Command is requesting emergency negotiations. Even the Andromedans are reconsidering their entire alliance structure. Morrison nodded as he watched the tactical displays update in real time. "Phase 3 is ready to commence. Signal all task force commanders. It's time to show them what we learned while they thought they were the superior species in the galaxy." Phase 3 involved something that no galactic species had ever attempted: simultaneous cyber warfare attacks on every major computer network in Council space. Commander Rachel Lopez led a team of the most skilled computer experts humanity had ever produced, individuals who had spent years studying alien technology and finding ways to penetrate their most secure systems. "Beginning network infiltration now," Lopez reported from her position in the Cyber Warfare Center. "All primary targets are responding to our access protocols. It looks like they never updated their security systems after we shared our early computer technology with them 20 years ago. What the aliens didn't realize was that the computer systems humans had shared with them contained hidden access codes and backdoor programs. For 2 decades, human programmers had been quietly mapping alien networks, learning their security protocols, and planting the digital tools they would need for exactly this kind of operation. Within hours, human cyber warfare specialists had gained control of traffic management systems, power grids, communication networks, and even some military command centers across Council space. They weren't using this access to cause massive destruction or civilian casualties. Instead, they were demonstrating just how completely humanity could dominate galactic civilization if they chose to do so. "Alien species across the galaxy are receiving our message simultaneously," Lopez reported. Every major communication network is broadcasting Admiral Morrison's terms for ending the conflict. The message was simple and direct. The Galactic Council, as it currently existed, would be dissolved. In its place, a new organization would be created based on true equality between species, with humanity taking its rightful place as a full partner rather than a subordinate member. Any species that wanted to continue their hostile actions against human space would face the full military might that humanity had been developing in secret. "Sir," Captain Brooks entered the command center with the latest intelligence reports. "We're receiving surrender requests from 43 different military commanders across the galaxy. The collective's remaining fleets are withdrawing to their home systems. The hegemony is asking for immediate ceasefire negotiations." Morrison studied the reports with satisfaction. "Tell them that ceasefire negotiations will begin as soon as they acknowledge the dissolution of the current council structure and agree to participate in forming the new Galactic Assembly under the terms we've outlined." The campaign that had begun with humanity's forced exile was ending with the complete transformation of galactic civilization. The species that had dismissed humans as primitive and dangerous were learning that they had made the greatest strategic mistake in galactic history. "What's the status of our casualties?" Morrison asked. Foster consulted her reports. "Remarkably light. Fewer than 200 military personnel killed or wounded across all operations. Our technological advantages and superior tactical planning have made this the most one-sided military campaign in recorded galactic history." Morrison looked around the command center at the people who had made this victory possible. "Send a message to all human forces. Phase 4 begins tomorrow. It's time to start building the new galactic order." 3 weeks after the human offensive had begun, the surrender of the Galactic Council came not through a massive final battle, but through the complete collapse of their ability to function as a government. Human cyber warfare specialists, working under Commander Rachel Lopez, had systematically penetrated every major computer network in Council space, demonstrating a level of technological superiority that made continued resistance pointless. The Council chambers on Nexus Prime, which had once hosted humanity's expulsion, now served as the site of very different proceedings. The same crystal table where alien representatives had voted to cast out the human species now held those same aliens as prisoners, facing the species they had tried to exile. "We didn't just build better weapons during our time in the galactic community," Lopez explained to the assembled former council members, her voice calm and professional. "We built better everything. While your species spent centuries maintaining the same old technologies and the same old ways of thinking, we innovated, adapted, and most importantly, we learned from every interaction we had with your civilizations." Ambassador Zixathara, her mandibles clicking nervously, looked around the chamber at the human guards who stood at attention along the walls. These soldiers carried weapons that looked almost elegant in their simplicity, but the alien ambassador had seen the devastating effects of human military technology and knew better than to underestimate anything the humans had created. "What is it that you want from us?" she asked, her translator struggling to convey the mixture of fear and resignation in her voice. Admiral Morrison, who now wore the uniform of the newly created Human Galactic Command, entered the chamber with Captain Lisa Brooks and Dr. Amanda Foster at his side. He took his seat at the head of the crystal table in the same position that had once been reserved for the Council's rotating chairperson. "The same thing we always wanted," Morrison said, his voice carrying easily through the chamber's acoustic systems. "Equality, respect, and the right to exist as a free species without interference from organizations that consider themselves our superiors. The only difference is that now we don't need your permission to have those things." Brooks stepped forward and placed a data tablet on the table in front of the alien representatives. "The terms are straightforward and non-negotiable. All aggressive military actions against human space will cease immediately. Full reparations will be paid for the invasion fleets you sent into our territory. Most importantly, the Galactic Council, as it currently exists, will be permanently dissolved." Dissolved? Counselor Vorth Ak of the Andromedons could barely contain his shock. His species had been part of the galactic government for over 3,000 years. The idea of its complete elimination was almost incomprehensible to him. Doctor, Foster nodded and activated a holographic display that appeared above the center of the table. The Council will be replaced by the Galactic Assembly, a governing body where every species has equal representation and equal voice in decisions that affect them. No single species or group of species will have the power to expel others or dictate terms to their neighbors. The holographic display showed the proposed structure of the new government, with representatives from dozens of species arranged in a circular pattern rather than the hierarchical seating that had characterized the old council. At the center of the circle was a simple podium marked with the symbols of all member species, including humanity's eagle prominently displayed alongside alien emblems. "This is impossible," protested Zix Thera. "The galaxy needs strong leadership, clear hierarchies, established order. You cannot expect dozens of different species to govern themselves as equals. It will lead to chaos and conflict." Morrison smiled, though there was no humor in his expression. "You mean the same kind of chaos and conflict that led to you expelling an entire species for refusing to share their military technology? The same established order that resulted in invasion fleets being sent to occupy territory that didn't belong to you?" The former council members had no answer for that. Their system of government had worked for them precisely because it allowed the stronger species to dominate the weaker ones, maintaining stability through the threat of force and the promise of protection. The idea of true equality between species was something they had never seriously considered. "The negotiations will begin tomorrow," Brooks announced. "Representatives from 47 different species have already agreed to participate in establishing the new assembly. Those who choose not to participate will find themselves isolated from galactic trade, communication networks, and mutual defense agreements." Over the following days, the negotiations proceeded with remarkable efficiency. The human delegation, led by Morrison and supported by teams of diplomats, lawyers, and technical experts, had clearly thought through every aspect of the new governmental structure. They presented detailed proposals for trade regulations, territorial boundaries, resource-sharing agreements, and conflict resolution procedures. What surprised many of the alien delegates was how reasonable the human proposals actually were. Rather than seeking to dominate the new government, humanity was offering genuine equality and partnership to any species willing to accept the new order. The humans had demonstrated their military superiority beyond any doubt, but they were using that strength to create a more fair system rather than to establish their own empire. Captain Danny Rodriguez, now serving as a liaison officer between human forces and alien civilian populations, reported regularly on the situation across former council space. Public opinion polls show that 73% of civilians across 42 different worlds support the establishment of the Galactic Assembly, he told Morrison during one of their daily briefings. They're tired of being governed by species that consider themselves superior. The idea of actual representation in government is appealing to a lot of people. 6 months after the first assembly session, Admiral Morrison stood in his office in the new Galactic Assembly building on Nexus Prime, which had been redesigned to accommodate representatives from dozens of different species. Through his window, he could see the bustling spaceport where ships from across the galaxy arrived daily, carrying delegates, traders, and tourists who were eager to participate in the new galactic civilization. The view was remarkably different from what he had seen from his Pentagon office on the day humanity was expelled from the old council. Instead of a single-species architecture and technology, the city below showed the influence of dozens of different civilizations working together. Human engineering techniques had been combined with alien artistic styles to create buildings that were both functional and beautiful. Captain Brooks entered his office with the daily reports from across assembly space. "The final holdout species have agreed to sign the assembly charter," she announced with satisfaction. The hegemony leadership voted yesterday to accept membership. Even the most conservative collective factions have agreed to participate rather than remain isolated. Morrison nodded as he continued to look out at the city. What about military cooperation? Better than we expected, Brooks replied. The Galactic Defense Pact has been signed by 61 species. Our joint training exercises are showing remarkable progress in integrating different military doctrines and technologies. Some of the alien commanders are actually quite innovative when they're not held back by centuries of rigid tradition. A formation of mixed human and alien starships passed overhead, returning from a joint patrol mission in the outer systems. The vessels displayed the new assembly insignia alongside their individual species markings, showing how the various races were learning to work together as equals rather than as superiors and subordinates. They expelled us, thinking they were getting rid of a troublesome problem, Morrison said quietly, still watching the ships disappear into the distance. Instead, they freed us from the limitations they had placed on our development. They gave us exactly what we needed to become the species they feared we might become. Foster entered the office carrying a tablet with the latest technological development reports. The joint research projects are exceeding all expectations, she said. When you combine human innovation with alien knowledge and resources, the results are remarkable. We've made more progress in the last year than most species achieve in decades. Morrison finally turned away from the window and looked at the two women who had been with him throughout the entire transformation of galactic civilization. Any regrets about how things turned out? Brooks shook her head. They made their choice. When they decided we were too dangerous to remain in their organization, all we did was prove them right, just not in the way they expected. Outside, the city continued its daily activities, with beings from dozens of different worlds working together, trading with each other, and building something that had never existed before in galactic history. A truly cooperative civilization based on mutual respect rather than domination by the strongest species. The galaxy would never be the same, and perhaps for the first time in millennia, that was exactly what every species in it needed.